Our hope is to not only become better informed with what each of you has to offer, but to also build stronger cooperative communication and efforts between the City of Flagstaff's officials and our realtor community for the betterment of our entire Flagstaff community. All of us are here today because we care and because each of us impacts our community and its future. By having a solid foundation of a collaboration between us, I am positive and encouraged that together we can continue to make Flagstaff one of the best places to live and work. So again, thank all of you for being here today, and an enormous thank you to Mr. Rick Lopez, our Northern Arizona Association of Realtors Government Affairs Director, for coordinating this event. Okay, we'll go ahead and begin. We'll start with our 2 mayoral candidates, and then we'll move on to the 6 city official candidates. Each of our candidates will begin with a 90-second introduction of themselves and why they want to be on the City Council. Candidates will then proceed with answering 5 questions randomly selected, which were randomly selected of 9 questions that were posed by our association, Northern Arizona Association of Realtors, NAAR. I'll refer to that to be a little quicker. Each candidate was sent a list of the 9 questions last week to prepare to answer today. Candidates will have 1 minute to answer each question and will be given a 15-second warning before their time ends to answer that question. After answering all 5 questions, NAAR members will be given the opportunity to ask questions with a 1-minute response time allowed. There's a limit of 3 questions allowed by the members. So members, please use the chat box to initiate your questions. If there are no questions or at least 6 minutes remaining after all questions have been answered, each candidate will be allowed 1 minute to provide a closing statement. I will be sharing my screen so that each of you can see the questions and know the name and the position of the candidates. Before we move on, just a friendly reminder to please ensure you are muted unless you are the candidate speaking or moderator. Thank you very much. All right, for our first candidate, we're going to start with you, Mr. Paul Deasy. And I believe Judy's going to go ahead and pull up the questions here so that our members can see them as well. And I'm trying to share my screen, but for whatever reason, it is not allowing me here. So let's see. You've given me profile, right, to provide, share my screen. It was on earlier.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I wonder why it's not wanting to share here now. Okay, well, let's go ahead and begin. And as I work through this, as you answer, Paul, I'll try to pop this up. I've got a nice picture here with your website on it. But the first question that we have for you today is, what do you see as the 5 most important issues you want to address during your 4-year term in office?
Okay, are we doing the introductions first for 90 seconds and then getting into the questions, or is that?
Yes, I apologize. Thank you. I'm glad you remember the format. Yes, please go ahead and introduce yourself, Paul. You've got 90 minutes to do so, and then we'll go into the first question, and I've given you a little heads up there. I'm not sure that you guys can see my screen, though, because it's not popping up unless you, are you guys able to see this here?
Melinda, you're only allowed to share 1 screen at a time, so you'll need to stop sharing the slideshow to share another screen.
Okay, can you see the slideshow? Because I don't see the slideshow.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, you can. Okay, all right, sounds good. Okay, so Paul, please, I apologize for the interruption there. Please go ahead.
Yeah, well, thank you all for holding this forum for all of us. And but moreover, thank you for the service that you all provide to this community. I don't think people realize how arduous and difficult it is to be a realtor and what it takes to go from somebody wanting to sell their house to putting keys in another person's hands. So thank you for being such an integral part and providing such a service to our community. Yeah, I'm Paul Deasy, running for mayor, obviously, and I'm running because I feel we need a new leader and a new direction for where Flagstaff is headed that represents the values of the people, and to address the many challenges that we face with creative problem solving, energy, and the courage to make the hard decisions. So I look forward to, yeah, getting into the questions here. So, oh, just switched a little bit. And hopefully I can fit the 5 most important in 60 seconds, but well, first, housing obviously is a huge issue. We're in the midst of a housing crisis. And especially in the light of COVID and the impending possibility of evictions and homelessness that we may be facing, you know, this winter, this is going to be even more important. I was reviewing the Acona study done a few years ago again, and you know, in 2016, our median sales price for a single-family home was $350,000. To my understanding, it's now about $420,000, which that requires an income of about over 100 grand, and the median household income in Flagstaff is 52,000. So we face a lot of challenges with balancing the income to our ability to house our population. Another issue is ensuring our essential city services are provided for in light of the economic downturn, including our roads, public safety, and waste management. And recently our operational revenue was projected to be down about 6% this year, which is actually, for me, I thought that was great news. I was expecting a little worse, but we will be facing some hard decisions moving forward. Another big important issue to me personally is the ability to communicate effectively with the public, to communicate with stakeholders and policy decision making.
10 seconds.
While also continuing to build strong relations between our city and the state and federal government. Other things, real quick, disclosure rules, a code of ethics, and many measures to ensure transparency in our government.
Sorry about that. I didn't realize the timer had a silent. My apologies.
No problem. Well, yes, we're all going to be working together as a city council. It is extremely important that we have good, positive relationships with one another. We can communicate even when we differ. And the whole key with all of this is there's ways to communicate that can treat people with dignity, to validate their voices and who they are, how their experiences have shaped what their decision-making or how they address the issues that we are facing in our community. And again, as a theme throughout my campaign, it comes down to communication, being able to sit down with folks, being able to translate hard, difficult information, complicated issues into a way that the people can understand and that we collectively as a council can represent the values of the people as we make those decisions that face our community. All right. Yes, what we're facing with the budget. 2020 has shown us that we face so many uncertainties about the future will hold for our local community to an international level. And much of the responsibilities of council is the ability to adapt to unpredictable events. One budgetary priority for me is housing. With the eviction crisis and everything that I had mentioned, that this is going to be especially important, especially poignant now than it has been even in the past, which, our housing crisis is not new news. One of my budgetary considerations that I would like to prioritize is to create an unrestricted rainy day fund in terms in light of emergencies, when an emergency declaration is set by a mayor or the governor, that we actually have a fund that can help address these issues, whatever it may be, from a pandemic to a wildfire, that the city has a savings account, so that way we can better respond to economic crises or any of the other crises we may face in the future. So that's going to be a priority for me, even despite definitely some hard decisions and budgetary considerations moving into the future, that we keep thinking a few years ahead rather than just right in what's in front of our faces. Yeah, so regarding the current council's raised property taxes, I wanted to just quickly mention that what the city did was they raised property taxes or the property tax levy, which is different than a property tax rate. Basically, with our levy system, the county assessor calculates the tax rate by dividing the whole levy that was increased by the total value of all property within their jurisdiction, and it trickles down to the individual level. I do not think we should be increasing our property taxes any further for the next 2 years for my term, because the mayor is 2-year term. There is something that I would like to investigate when it comes to our property taxes, however, being that I've come from economics in my schooling. That's partially what I do in my work. But we talk a lot actually about a land value tax rather than to replace part of our property taxes. And that is that the tax is based on the value of the land rather than the value of the land and the developed property on it. We need more housing. We want our neighborhoods to look good. And the current system of taxing penalizes owners with higher taxes when they construct, improve, or maintain their buildings. So this, not only to those benefits, but this has other benefits as well, including reducing land speculation, incentivizing infill, and having a more stable revenue stream for the city by changing part of our base tax code and how we're collecting taxes and assessing how much people are expected to pay. So I
3
would like
seconds
to
left.
Yeah, so I would just like to investigate this further, see how this might work for Flagstaff and how that might have some, how more geospatial on what neighborhoods and whatnot, how this would affect, so that way we can see if it might be a fit for Flag. All right. How to address, I mean, we've been in a housing crisis for a long time. This is not, there's no simple solution. If there was a simple solution, we would have found it by now. One of the things that I will like to see done, and I know there is already some good work moving towards this, is to change our affordable housing incentive policy for developers, so that way it can reach the goals that we set with that, reach our policy goals with that measure. It was the affordable housing incentive policy was developed in 2010, and over a decade we've seen that it has not reached the results that we were wanting and expecting. And I think part of that is because of competing incentives for housing. For example, we can get higher density not just from building affordable housing, but from our environmental sustainability incentives and other incentives that happen in our city. So I've been talking to stakeholders, and one of the ways that we might be able to address this is to look at creating an expedited process for developments that have a certain proportion of affordable housing. This way, we can have
20 seconds.
affordable housing happening sooner here in Flagstaff. The developers can make more money quicker, because that's what they're in this for, is for money, and to create kind of a win-win situation where we can really get this ball rolling. And that's just one idea of many, and I'm speaking with stakeholders to see what else we can do in that regard.
Melinda, you're on mute. Can't hear you.
Sorry about that. Questions from our members. Do we have any? We have a time for 3 at this point. And if not, I'm not seeing any in the chat box there. Then a closing statement then, Paul. We'll go ahead and proceed.
Yeah, really. Well, thank you for
I'm sorry to interrupt. I do have 2 people who did raise their hands to ask a question.
Okay, sorry about that. Go ahead.
Let me find those 2 people. Give me just 1 second. So I've got a question from Jackie Kellogg. I'm going to bring her on. And let me see. Jackie, do you have a mic?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
I was just curious what experience you have in any political committees or public office, or any political experience that you might have to share.
Yeah, thank you. That is a great question. So I am a policy analyst. It's my job to look through policies, to provide advice to leadership in government. So I run statistics. I provide consultation on a wide range of public policy issues. Right now I work at NAU, so I provide that for academic operations. I am also previously with the National Science Foundation, where I worked with our federal institutions on how to create more efficiency, particularly in how we were disseminating our federal aid to foreign governments that are war-torn. I have been on the Coconino County Advocates for Human Services Committee. I was a graduate of the Citizens Police Academy. I was involved with the minimum wage with my organization. As a president of Bridging Flagstaff, and I am on several state-level government committees regarding higher education and how to improve student success in NAU as well as in Arizona as a whole.
Thank you, Paul. The next question we have is from Nancy Branham. Nancy, do you have a mic?
I think so. Can you hear me?
Yes, we sure can. Go ahead.
I would like to ask Paul what kind of experience you have in planning and running meetings.
Yes. Well, I have a good amount of experience in government committee meetings, leading the discussions, whether that is with a general crowd in the room with public commentary, but also leading meetings with senior leadership levels, vice presidents, vice provost, navigating the conversation, ensuring that we stay to task, and with many people's times that if we have an hour, we need to see something from that we discussed at the beginning, that we actually have some direction and where to move at the end. So I do have experience in these higher level type government meetings and ensuring that we stay on task and that the complicated information that we have to look at, which a lot of the time I provide as a government analyst, is translated in a way that makes it easier for people to understand and that we can create real action from these discussions of the meeting of the minds in a government, in a government meeting.
It looks like we've got another question from an individual. She typed this one in. This one is from Kelly. Do you have plans to bring companies and businesses to Flagstaff? Knowing several individuals that are, after graduating from NAU in their 20s and 30s, that they are hardworking, several hourly jobs due to limited opportunities.
Yeah, and it is a huge issue. I actually volunteered at the business incubator on campus, helping with students to learn statistics and how to turn that into rewarding careers. Right now we are seeing, despite COVID and the economic downturn, certain areas of the economy are growing and actually growing pretty rapidly. And I think we need to look at these national trends, particularly in our computing, computer science, informatics, technology areas, which we actually as a city have a good comparative advantage with because of our, there's a new PhD program in the last couple of years at NAU. They have a new college altogether that's designed for our informatics, computing, applied engineering, that with partnerships with private companies, working with NAU, I do believe we can create that kind of a prospering sector in our community. And I've also reached out to others to get advice on this already, including the last living founder of Intel, who gave me certain tips, a lot of ideas on how to get this happening and meet the rubber to the road, as well as using our comparative advantages as a city, our labor skills that right now are serving coffee with masters in computer science. So let's use the skills that we have here as a community and get these entities out into Flagstaff that are growing nationwide still to this day.
Melinda, do we have time for one more question? For Paul, you're on mute. Okay, Paul, we have one from
We've got
Tad.
one more. I think that's an important one. I'd like to proceed with that.
Okay, from Tad Moore, where do you stand on the development of affordable housing on the city-owned Schultz Pass parcel?
Yeah, that is a great question, especially as of this week. Right now, they have the initiative for the Schultz Pass has over 4,500 signatures to put a measure on the ballot. And I know personally with COVID, it was very, very, very difficult to be collecting the signatures needed to get on the ballot. That's no fault of any individual or any group. At this point in time, this needs to go to the ballot before decisions are made on that parcel. And then from there, the people will decide yay or nay, and that will give direction to our city elected leaders on how to proceed. And that's what I will do. I'll listen to the public and what they decide in that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Paul. I appreciate that. We're going to go ahead and move on to our second mayoral candidates, Charlie Odegaard. And I will once again share my screen here so that we can see those questions posed. Okay, great.
Are you going to let him introduce himself first?
Yes, Charlie, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you. Appreciate it. The realtors providing this format of introducing the candidates to the community of the realtors. When I got elected in 2016 on the Flagstaff City Council, the realtors hosted an event where there was an economist, if I remember right, he was from Boston, and gave a synopsis of our community here in the city of Flagstaff, the challenges we have concerning home ownership, the challenges with rents. At the time, I invited my two colleagues, Councilmember Whelan and Councilmember McCarthy with me, and they had opened their eyes of what was happening in our community. And so I really want to give a big shout out to the realtors of hosting that conference, of having that economist come to Flagstaff, and really open everyone's eyes, especially the leaders in our community, of the challenges of housing. And since then, we have been very active in bringing housing here in Flagstaff since then. So I really want to thank the realtors for that. So appreciate it.
Thank you, Charlie. Okay, we'll begin with the first question. As you can see here, how will you address the continuing growth pressures such as people moving here who work remotely, second home buyers from the Valley and Las Vegas, and the future growth at NAU? Let's see if I have a typo there.
So how do I address growth? I always address growth in balance of the character of our community of Flagstaff, and with, as I just mentioned, of the challenges of we need more housing. I have been a very big proponent of bringing more housing to our community. I was one of the proponents of approving Timber Sky here in our community of 1,300 homes. A previous council had approved the rezone for it. Many council members said that development was a prime example what we want here in the city of Flagstaff. And then, and I had an opportunity to help bring that project forward. And I was a yes on that and very proud. And we're seeing construction out there as we speak. Other communities, Crestview, helped bringing that project forward as a council body member. And, you know, other projects, we just approved the housing there on Butler and 4th Street, studios, 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms.
20
So
seconds.
we need here in the community, because Kona report from when I first got elected said we were 6,000 housing units short for our community. And so, thank you. Oh, your mic is off, Melinda.
Sorry, I'm trying to be cautious. COVID-19 has created significant issues with small businesses. How do you plan to assist these locally owned small businesses and help them keep their doors open?
Yes, we just had this discussion last night with Dr. Guzman from NEU. I asked this exact same question, and he said the small business, that's who we need to listen to. That's who we need to help, because they're very nimble. On the Flagstaff City Council, I started what was called a listening tour of our business community. I really want to thank Councilmember McCarthy for attending every tour of the business community. And because of that tour, we had some suggestions from the business community, how the city of Flagstaff can be partners to help our local businesses. And some of those policy decisions that we made, like providing a rebate for car sales, which are car efficient, to help with our cap, to create a less carbon environment here in Flagstaff by promoting fuel efficient cars. And then business expansion, sales tax rebate if someone wants to expand their business of constructing like you know, another warehouse and another assembly line where they need that space. The city of Flagstaff will rebate their sales tax of that construction of that part. And so we as a city of Flagstaff have to partner with our business community to help us bring out of COVID.
20 seconds.
They're successful. And so I appreciate it. That's a good question.
Sorry, can you guys hear me okay? My Somehow
Yep.
I've lost my, okay, we'll move on to 3. Sorry, my screen is doing something weird here. Okay, sorry. Thanks for your patience. We have, by most accounts, a very safe city to live, work, or visit. Since this is critically important to our residents, small business owners, and visitors, how do you plan to ensure that it stays that way?
I've been very big proponent of our public safety. I'm assuming that's where the question is after. Since I got elected on the Flagstaff City Council, we've hired more police officers. We had a very high turnover rate among our police officers. So we gave them a merit pay raise. That was not that was not an easy decision. It was actually very hard to get that merit pay raise, but we did it. They were very grateful. And then we also started a new program with police aides. The police aides help alleviate the duties of our sworn officers. Actually, the police aides have been our #1 proactive in policing here in the community. That's really made a difference here in our community. I've been endorsed by the Flagstaff Law Enforcement Association. I've also been endorsed by the Fire Association here in Flagstaff. They recognize my efforts concerning this issue about safety here in our community.
20 seconds.
I'm done. Thank you.
Great.
You're on mute, Melinda.
Sorry. As you can see here, the current city council has raised property taxes 3 times over the 3 years for a total of 16% without a vote of the people. The property taxes are naturally going up due to increased property values. Where do you stand on raising property taxes?
Thank you. As Mr. Deasy explained concerning the levy, yes, I did vote for the first 2 years, raising that levy rate up to 14%. And the reason why I did it is so we can have more police and more fire here in our community. And it was not an easy decision. I got beat up pretty hard for feels like almost 2 years on this decision, but I do not regret it at all when I've made a difference concerning our policing and concerning our fire response. If I had to do it again, I would happy to do it. And then as far as year 3, I did not vote for that increase. I didn't feel like the need was there to raise it. And then this past year, in year 4, we as a council body in time of COVID chose not to take the levy rate increase of that 2% just because it would not be fair to ask the residents. The county did, City of Flagstaff did not. We all got our property tax bill if you're so blessed to own a residential home, and you actually saw your tax go down in that tax bill. Didn't go down much, but everyone else went up. County, FUSD went up, City of Flagstaff did not.
Thank you. And your last question, Mr. Odegaard. What would you like to see done regarding the short-term and vacation rentals?
Okay. Yes, very hot topic in our community, especially when you go into residential neighborhoods on this topic. And we as a community cannot do nothing. We're preempted by the state of Arizona. So for the most part, our hands are tied. But what we can do is make these vacation rentals to be good neighbors here in our community. The city of Sedona this past November just passed an ordinance/resolution to give our police officers and to give our staff members in code compliance some tools for these vacation rentals to be good neighbors in their communities or in their neighborhoods. City staff or city attorney said, Charlie, look for that to come forward this fall. We just approved a couple weeks ago some software to bring in everybody, and so we find out who are here in our Flagstaff of short-term rentals, because some people are flying underneath the radar, You know, they're not with some of the bigger national sites.
20 seconds.
We would like to find out who's here in our community as short-term rentals. And then with this ordinance/resolution, bring in compliance and for them to be good neighbors here in the neighborhoods of Flagstaff.
Thank you, Charlie. Okay, and so that wraps up the 5 questions. Questions from our members, please proceed, Ventrice.
Looks like I have Nancy. She's got a question. Let me go ahead and unmute her. Nancy, can
I would like to ask Charlie the same question that I asked Paul, what kind of experience that you have in planning and running meetings?
Okay, thank you, Nancy. Definitely a good question. Have been blessed, served on the Flagstaff City Council for the last 4 years. I've also had served on our water commission the 3 years before. And that has given me some tools being, you know, cordial, polite, respectful in my colleagues during meetings. And as far as running a meeting, I was president of our church council for many years there. And I feel like I did a really good job in providing direction and providing leadership on a city council and running those meetings where they got things done and be able to delegate those items that need to be delegated among my colleagues. The mayor cannot do everything. The mayor needs help from all 6 members of the council body to bring forward items that will benefit the community.
Thank you.
Rick, it looks like you have a question as well.
Yes, Charlie, mayoral candidate Paul Deasy answered this question, but I'm going to ask it in a slightly different way regarding the Schultz Pass property that is being positioned for a vote of the people to determine whether to keep that as open space or to allow it to be developed for affordable housing. My question for you, however, is that I have not heard any discussions from either the people who plan to do that initiative or anyone else who has spoken about it as to how the city is going to recover the money back into the housing fund that has been spent in purchasing that property and improving that property. Where is that money going to come from, and who's going to decide where that money comes from? Is it going to be the people that put it on the ballot, or is it going to be the council, or is it going to just simply kind of get swept under the rug and nobody will pay attention to it over time?
Thank you, Rick, for that question. Yes, and that's what we're trying to figure out as the City of Flagstaff staff concerning the dollars that were used to do the purchase of that property and the dollars that were used for the infrastructure improvements. City staff last night at their council meeting said they really haven't got a finalization of those monies where they specifically designated for affordable housing, where they designated for infrastructure. They haven't provided clarity on that issue of those dollars specifically, because we've seen it all over the board where they could have been general fund dollars, they could have been housing dollars, but the city staff is going to get back to us and provide clarity on those dollars. And then let's say the citizen initiative, when it does happen, 2022 is, I'm guessing, and if it does pass, that it remains open space, then what do we do? Provide dollars back, because now it's an open space where it was identified at one time as housing. And so that's a good question. Me personally, I would like to find dollars within our budget to make that, if it determines that it was housing dollars, to make that fund whole. That would be my desire. That won't happen from the Citizens Initiative because that's not in the language of that ask. So we are not going to see any decision by the citizens to how to make that fund whole if it needs to be put back in place as whole as far as how those dollars were used. So I would like to do that if that's the appropriate path. Because it's, you know, it's out of fairness, it's out of equity for that housing fund if that's was determined. But we don't know exactly yet, but hopefully soon.
Okay, it looks like Tad has a question. Tad, do you have your mic on? Go ahead and unmute your, oh, there you go.
I was actually just going to ask, Rick asked the question I was going to, so thank you.
Does anybody else have a question for Charlie?
I see maybe Mr. Anthony Garcia might have a hand raised, or just, oh, you're exercising.
Okay, Melinda.
Very nice.
Oh,
Okay.
actually, hold on. Just one question came up. I've got a question for Chad Dragos. What is your opinion on bringing in big business to Flagstaff?
Okay. As we found out in COVID, we have to diversify our economy. We just cannot rely on tourism alone. Tourism is great. It brings outside dollars. It provides a lot of tax base to provide a lot of community benefits here in our community, but we cannot rely on that alone. So we need to be very thoughtful about looking at our businesses here, of seeing if we can partner with them, doing expansion projects or attracting businesses. It's been my effort. The city of Flagstaff has 30 plus acres over there by the airport. As you remember, most of you, that had a thought of selling to the Green Tree properties, but that didn't happen, that fell through. So now what? What do we do with that 30 acres? Well, it was my thought, and then I brought this forward to Miss Goodrich at the time, is looking at that 30 acres and partnering with a master developer of building the space that will attract businesses here in Flagstaff. Because I hear from businesses that we really don't have the right space for someone to land here in our community, whether it's medical, manufacturing. The space is not there for them to come and basically set up shop. And so right now, the city of Flagstaff put out a request for proposal from a potential master developer to partner with the city to make that happen. So I'm anxious to see what the response is from the private side and helping with the city of diversifying our business community. So hopefully we'll hear something soon.
Thank you, Charlie. Any other questions? We have time for a closing statement for Charlie, or are we moving on? Ventries?
Oh, we've got time for a closing statement, Judy, if that's all right.
Charlie, go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you. Appreciate this opportunity of introducing myself to your members. I know a lot of yes, but I don't know everybody. And you know, on Flagstaff City Council back in 2016, I did not really make no promises, because it's almost impossible to make promises, in my opinion, of a potential person that gets elected on a political body. But I did make one promise, and that was to be busy, not just to be a warm seat on Tuesday evenings during our council meetings. And because of my busyness, because I'm a hard worker, you know, third generation small business owner here in Flagstaff, I work 6 days a week, like most of you, if not 7 days, and I've been there. But we've done a lot of good things here in our community. I really want to thank Mr. Deasy for recognizing the good work we're doing in bringing some housing opportunities here in our community. And then all the good work as far as infrastructure projects, the 4th Street Bridge that you see on there. I drove around the state of Arizona for a year and a half in my 2002 Ford F-150 F-150 pickup with almost 300,000 miles advocating to get that bridge project done for the community. And we're seeing the benefit of it happening now with a ribbon cutting soon. And then same with the Rio de Flag. I really believed in that project. I really believed it was a project that could be done here for our community. It was hard. Some of my longtime colleagues on the Flagstaff City Council, current and past, were very down on the project just because it's been so long, 2 decades of wanting to do this project. But so excited that we got the award of $52 million this spring, that I'm going to take the most of downtown, south side, quarter of NEU out of the floodplain, and a shovel in the ground next year. Super excited about it. Super excited about potential future things, especially on the housing front that I got my hands in, and on the business side of things that I got my hands in of seeing fruition for our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Okay, great. So we've heard from both Charlie and from Paul, now our mayoral candidates. Again, thank you both for joining us today and providing your answers and feedback to our questions here, and making a point to be here with us today. We're going to go ahead and move forward. Yes, absolutely. Everybody give them a nice warm applause there. Thank you. We'll go ahead and move forward with our city official council candidates. We'll go ahead, and we are going to be starting with you, Miss Becky. If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, we'll go forward. And I did not have quite the time to prepare the full presentation. It was kind of a last minute to put that up, but I do have your information that I will share my screen with, so that they've got your information and know who you are as you're addressing the questions that was sent to you. So,
Thank you.
yes, let me go ahead and put this on the mode here.
Let me switch to this mode, and all right. Well, thank you very much for having all of us here. I think we all welcome the opportunity to talk to different groups around the around town. I know I do. A little bit about myself. My dad moved his construction company to Flagstaff when I was very young, and I spent most of my weekends and all summer in the forests around Flagstaff exploring. I came to NAU for my undergrad degree, moved to Oregon, and then moved back and completed my master's degree at NAU. I've invested 25 years in this community, working in land use, planning, conservation, economic development, public education, social services, and arts management. I'm an active volunteer with Theatricos Theater Company and High Country Humane. And I'm running because I love Flagstaff, and I know that I can help to guide the change and handle the challenges that are coming our way. I care about inclusivity, community design, jobs, arts and culture, affordable housing, and parks, trails, and the environment.
Thank you, Becky. Okay, we'll go ahead and proceed with some questions here. First question, how do you plan to work with incumbent council members to address the many issues facing our community?
Well, for one, I've been following all of the council discussions, and I feel like I have a good sense of not only what the issues are, but also what our incumbents feel about the various issues and how they tend to vote. So I feel like I have a good handle on how to work with each of them. And I also have a proven track record in this community of getting things done with working with people from very different backgrounds.
You're on mute, Melinda.
Sorry, guys. We've got some background noise I'm trying to keep you away from. Question number 2, Becky. What do you see as the 5 most important issues you want to address during your 4-year term in office?
Affordable housing, responsive and professional governance, recognizing the arts as an economic driver and investing and promoting them, included in that is exploring new and redeveloped visual and performing arts venues, climate change, and community enhancing economic development.
Thank you. And our third question, our housing prices are at an all-time high. Our rents have been described as the 5th worst in the nation. How do you plan to address those issues?
I think that no one is better poised to understand what a problem this is than you all, and how long it's been a problem. I first off want to say that I see affordable housing as a crisis in our community. I think that it is one of the #1 problems that we need to tackle in right now. So some of the ways is negotiating changes to our affordable housing incentive policy, creating something that's going to work and is going to get us the results that we want, negotiating as much affordable housing as possible in all new developments, advocating for the passage of an affordable housing bond, advocating in every way I can for the attraction of federal and state dollars for affordable housing. And I would love to partner with the realtors to convince the legislature
20 seconds.
Arizona cities more tools in order to have more tools in our affordable housing toolbox.
Thank you. Okay. Fourth question. Soon after your election, the city will begin planning the 2021 fiscal budget. What will your priorities be for that budget?
First off, addressing the financial circumstances as a result of COVID. And council had a great discussion last night of what is going on in terms of revenue. And so addressing that, changing what we need to change in order to address those issues, and then affordable housing.
Thank you. Last question, Becky. COVID-19 has created significant issues with small businesses. How do you plan to assist these locally owned small businesses and help them keep their doors open?
Well, I've long been an advocate for locally owned small businesses. I helped to start the Flagstaff Independent Business Alliance. I served on the advisory board for the Small Business Development Center for 3 years. I helped to bring in speakers to share information with the community about locally owned businesses. And I also served as the Business Retention and Expansion Manager for the city of Flagstaff. So I would continue my advocacy of small businesses and welcome the opportunity to discuss specific proposals. I think that small business owners know best what would assist them.
Thank you. Okay, and now it is time to open up Q&A from our members. Any questions? So far, none that I can see here, unless you're seeing something else, Ventrice.
Nope, I'm waiting, just waiting for our members to come in with questions.
Okay, well, let's give them some time if they need to. And Becky, if you'd like to go ahead and give us your closing statement, please.
Certainly. I just want to reiterate that the reason why I'm running is because I love this community and I've invested my life in this community. And anyone who's worked with me or seen my work in the community, I believe, knows that I'm someone who can work with anyone, and I can get things done working with anyone, regardless of whether they agree with me or not. As long as we all have the best interests of the city of Flagstaff at the heart of what we're doing, I want to work with you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Then we'll go ahead and proceed then with our next city official candidate. Becky, again, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And next we have Anthony Garcia. If you could please unmute yourself.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good. Go ahead and please give us your 90-second introduction and then we'll proceed with questions.
Okay, well, I would like to begin by thanking the Northern Arizona Association of Realtors for bringing us together to share our passions, our values, and our love for our community. I am Anthony Garcia. I am a third-generation Flagstaffian, And as a lifelong resident, I feel like I'm uniquely positioned to provide a local's perspective to the City Council. This historical view will be focused on leading with values, building a more inclusive community, and providing equitable housing for all. Since I was a kid, I've watched this town develop while also seeing the cost of living rise, chasing more and more of my friends and family away from living here. And I would like to see a more holistic approach to that development, focused on sustainability, so our future generations can share in the same experience I had growing up here. I currently serve our community as the Beautification and Public Art Commission Chairman. I have served the city in this capacity since 2007 with the focus on cultivating robust community engagement. I believe that in the power of our people. Connecting our community with programmatic resource outputs introduces authenticity into our landscape, and that is important when people say what makes
20
Flagstaff
seconds.
Flagstaff. I want to make sure that we focus on well-balanced decisions regarding economic development, public health and safety, let's see, environmental stewardship, and fiscal responsibility moving forward.
Thank you.
That's me.
Thank you, Anthony. Okay, your first question today we have is that we have, by most accounts, a very safe city to live, work, or visit. Since this is critically important to our residents, small business owners, and visitors, how do you plan to ensure that it stays that way?
Well, I think that's a really important question, and I'm going to lead with, I'm going to focus on police and fire. And for me, I had over 2,000 conversations with community members while petitioning. I talked to a few people from the fire department that said that we have eliminated a couple of firehouses and we've only built one in the last 20 years. And men per truck are down and the calls have increased. So I think through budgeting, whether it be police or fire, it is important that we give them the resources that they need so they can take care of us. And for police, I think it's important to make sure that they have a work-life balance and also the appropriate mental health training and things, so that way we don't see any tragedies like we have recently seen in more than once in the past couple of years, to make sure that our police are healthy and they could take, if we take care of them, they'll take care of us.
Thank you. And a second question, how will you address continuing growth pressures such as people moving here who work remotely, second home buyers from the Valley and Las Vegas, California, et cetera, future growth of NAU?
Well, I was, like I said, I was born and raised here, so I've seen this place develop. First, we already have a roadmap for tackling this problem sustainably for future growth projections for up to 2015 and beyond. The 2030 regional plan suggests that development of activity centers are going to harness such future growth. Us voters passed Proposition 419 and 420, which will alleviate traffic and add a pathway to Flagstaff Part 2 when they finally build that John Wesley Powell Boulevard. As a councilman, I will advocate for a robust infrastructure implementation. When working to develop within our regional plan, we must build smarter to avoid vehicular traffic overload that has putting pressure on our streets now and other infrastructure needs. We need to address them in the beginning of this building of Flagstaff Part 2, in my opinion, is what's happening right now.
Okay, thank you. Fourth question. What would you like, let's go to, the current city council has raised the property taxes 3 times in the last 3 years for a total of 16% without a vote from the people. Since property taxes are naturally going up due to increased property values, where do you stand on raising property taxes?
Well, it's my understanding that we have some of the highest property taxes in the state. It's also my understanding through talking with those 2,000 or more than 2,000 people on the campaign trail that our property taxes aren't quite as high as many places in the nation. As a matter of fact, a couple of days ago, I had a conversation with somebody that said that they moved here specifically because they got like a 300% discount on property taxes. So I don't think that because of COVID and the economic downturn that we need to be making decisions for our voting population as far as property taxes are concerned. But we do get what we pay for. And if you're going to want police and fire and a decent streets and a good infrastructure, you know, we're going to have to, you know, when new issues arise, we're going to have to find a way to pay for that. And we can't pull that money, you know, out of thin air. So moving forward, I will not be advocating for any new taxes on property anytime soon. But as soon as things stabilize, if the need comes, we're going to have to look for it somewhere. I prefer to look to the voters to decide, though.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Fourth question, what would you like to see done regarding short-term vacation rentals?
I don't know. So short-term vacation rentals, as you all know, in the real estate industry, homeowner associations here in Flagstaff have really tightened their restrictions on short-term vacation rentals as a whole. You know, and Flagstaff doesn't have the ability to do that primarily because of Senate Bill 1350, which restricts local control and home rule regarding that issue. As leadership, I would advocate for a more refined and thoughtful database to identify STVRs. Excuse me, I tried to shorten it and made it longer. So we can hold them more accountable for taxation and impact fees owed to help better our community. We all need to pay our fair share when it comes to this, and that includes those who are putting hotels in neighborhoods. Also, better zoning rules, you know, to get those hotels out of our neighborhoods are appropriate. The Flagstaff community and homeowners do not want a hotel next door to them. And in the past, zoning helped us not have hotels in
20
neighborhoods.
seconds.
In the past, zoning helped us out with that. So I would look towards zoning as soon as we worked out the issues with SB 1350.
Thank you. And your last question, Anthony. What do you see as the 5 most important issues you want to address during your 4-year term in office?
Okay, let's get back to the basics because of our recent economic downturn. You know, first, you know, in light of the COVID virus and the economic downturn, fiscal responsibility is at the top of my priority list. My goal is to retain our current city staff load to ensure that we progress efficiently through our recession. This is, you know, this will entail prioritizing our needs over our wants for the foreseeable future. That's the bottom line. It's our job as council to define those needs. 2, public health and safety, which really should be number 1, but without financing, we can't, you know, have the police and fire, because that really helps our community stay more livable and a greater place to live. 3 is integrating sustainability as the thread that ties all city departments together, and that includes environmental, ecological, and cultural impacts, and water resource management. All things sustainable need to be addressed, even when it comes to finance. Sustainable finance is very important. Equitable housing solutions for all. It's high time that we help our community find pathways to home ownership, which will in turn help
20 seconds.
Which will in turn help you guys because you sell those homes to those home ownerships. And lastly, garnering a Northern Arizona Regional Alliance. So that way we can get more funding from the state. With the COVID virus, we were robbed of a lot of funding because we didn't have over 500,000 people in Flagstaff. We need to work on a bigger alliance. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And at this time, we've answered all 5 questions that we had posed. A Q&A from our members.
Woo!
And I'm not seeing anybody there. Anybody want to raise their hand, open their mic, ask some questions? If not, let's go ahead then with your closing statement.
I just want to make sure that, you know, as a lifelong resident of Flagstaff, that we're able to, you know, share our vision and make sure we keep everything, you know, sustainable and livable, and everything that is Flagstaff available for future generations. I'm not talking about, you know, my grandkids. I'm talking about their grandkids. So that way they can have the same experience I had growing up here as a kid, you know, and including inclusivity. I also want to make sure that we work together, talk to all sides regarding every issue, because I'm not an expert. I'm going to need your help. I'm not an expert at everything, some things, but I'm going to need your guys' help in order to, you know, in order to get the vision of Flagstaff. Your voice matters as much as my voice does. I just happened to be the one that took the stand to convey your voice moving forward. And I want to speak for all of you. And I want to thank all the rest of the city council candidates for running. It's a tough job, guys, and you guys have done a good job, and I'm glad to be running with you.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.
It looks like we do have a question here from
Oh,
Chad
no.
Moore. It says, where do you stand on the development of Schultz Pass for affordable housing?
Schultz Pass, I've heard that it's a cop-out to say that you want to, that you want to leave it up to the voters. But as leadership, our job is to manage direction and decisions that are brought to us. So until we get the actual understanding of what the community wants, then we can't move forward with what the community should have there. If it's deemed that it should stay open, or no, it's not open space, that's where I'm wrong. If it's deemed that it should stay, that it should be turned into open space, then we find a way to preserve that and the other 78 acres behind it possibly, so we could have true open space in that area. But if not, and we want to develop there, then why don't we develop there a little bit more beautifully and take in some of that aesthetic and viscerality that's there now and put that into a housing development plan. If not, let's try to get that whole section of land for open space. That's my goal. Any other questions?
It doesn't look like it.
Dang, I thought I was on one too.
All right, thank you, Anthony. Appreciate you joining us today. We'll go
you.
ahead and move on to our third city official candidate, Mr. Jim McCarthy. If you could unmute yourself and begin, introduce yourself, please.
Well, thank you to the realtors. My name is Jim McCarthy. And just as a little bit of information, I was raised in Arizona. I got a mechanical engineering degree at the University of Arizona and a master's degree in land use planning at ASU. And I've lived up here about 18 years. During that time, I've served 5 years in the Water Commission, 6 years on the Planning and Zoning Commission. So I'm very interested in land use issues. I've been on city council. This is my 4th year. And I volunteered to be on the Housing Commission because I really do care about that issue. And I have some ideas that really haven't been explored yet, but I'm still pushing for them. I guess one of the main reasons I'm running is that I think it's really important to have some new blood on council, but I also think it's good to have some continuity on council. And I was just talking to the mayor last night and saying that, it takes about 3 or 4 years before you really understand what's going on council. And the first couple of years, I was naive in some ways, but I think I'm more realistic and better in tune for future leadership. So that's kind of a summary of where I'm at. I didn't keep track of the time.
You've got 30 seconds.
Oh, well, so I think I've been very accessible on council. And I think I've provided leadership in some cases. I've brought people together that didn't even want to talk to each other. Wheeler Park is an example. We got a compromise on, some people thought we had too much noise in the park. Other people thought, no, we need events there. And I brought them together and brought a compromise that brought the noise level down, but we're still able to do it. And that's an example of bringing people together. And that's one of my favorite things to do as a council person, is to bring people together and create solutions.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, our first question for you today. COVID-19 has created significant issues with small businesses. How do you plan to assist these locally owned small businesses and help them keep their doors open?
Well, we have done certain things, like the city has opened up some of the streets for dining. I think that was a very good move for downtown. I think we need to encourage people to wear masks so that COVID doesn't become a problem again. As Charlie Ortegard mentioned, we have given some tax breaks for those people selling the car dealerships in town. So And I think being responsible to not open things up faster than is actually appropriate. So those are some of my ideas.
Okay, thank you. Second question, our housing prices are at an all-time high and our rents have been described as the 5th worst in the nation. How do you plan to address those issues?
Well, I think that one thing we need to do is build more houses. And one of the things that I've been pushing for is to work with developers and builders in a way that we can help them reduce their costs so that they can build more, but in a way that provides, still quality housing, but provides more housing. And while I was getting my signatures, I ran into several developers and have worked with some of them. And a lot of them have ideas of how we can cut costs. One example is having pay cities fees, not when they take out the building permit, but when they get the occupancy permit. And that would save them a lot of money and really help them when it really wouldn't make much difference to the city.
Okay, thank you. Third question, this current city council has raised property taxes 3 times in 3 years for a total of 16% without a vote of the people. Since property taxes are naturally going up due to increased property values, where do you stand on raising property taxes?
Well, first of all, that statement is partially wrong. When the valuations go up, that does not make the city property tax go up, because what the city does is we allocate a certain amount of tax, and if valuations go up, the tax rate goes down to balance it. So that is slightly incorrect. I did vote for those changes, but to put this in perspective, 2 things. One is, if we don't increase the taxes somewhat, they're in effect being lowered because of inflation. The other thing is, during the Jeff Orovitz council years, there were not property taxes. So when you average that in with the current, the increases were actually fairly minor. I'm hoping that we don't have to raise taxes again. And I don't know that we will in the next couple of years.
Okay, thank you. Fourth question, how do you plan to work with incumbent council members to address the many issues facing our community?
Well, actually, I pride myself in working with all of council members. I'm on very good terms with everyone on council, and we don't always agree. Charlie Odegaard and I sometimes vote the opposite way, but neither of us gets uptight about it, and we go ahead and work on the next issue. I do find working with candidates or council members can actually be very productive. An example is that Charlie Odegaard and I have been working with the developer and homeowners in the area on track 22 down by John Wesley Powell. And that project was basically at a stalemate, which would not make anyone happy. But Charlie and I have, kind of crossed the aisle, worked with each other, and worked with all involved, including city staff. And I think we're going to see a good project down there that the neighborhood can live with and the developer can make some money at.
Okay, thank you. And Jim, your last question here. Soon after your election, the city will begin planning the 2021 fiscal budget. What will your priorities be for that budget?
Well, I think the main thing is that we balance the budget. We have a new budgeting process, which will lend itself to that with a lot more input from the city residents. I would like to point out that the city council's policy has been to have a 20% reserve. And since I've been on council, there were council members that said, no, let's get rid of that so we can do, build more things or whatever. And I and the majority of the council says, no, we need to keep that 20% reserve because we may need it if there's some kind of downturn. Well, we are right in the middle of a downturn right now. So I think that kind of judgment to say we need to be conservative on budget has been very beneficial. And the right path for the city.
Okay, thank you, Tim. That answers all 5 questions. We will now open it up to our members for questions there. I don't see any that are here just yet, Jim. So let's go ahead. If you could, please give us your closing statement.
Okay, as I pointed out before, I think experience, a combination of experience that I have and one other candidate that's running for mayor has, in combination with some new blood, is very important. I have a very strong interest in housing issues of 2 types: the affordable housing for the people who don't make much money, but also for what we might call middle America, for our teachers and firemen, so that they can live here too. I'm very interested in climate change, protection of the natural environment. I love the open space. I mean, one of the reasons I moved here with my wife 18 years ago was she worked at W.L. Gore. But what I really liked about it, it was all the hiking. It's just, right at the end of the neighborhood. And I love the people here. And I like the idea that we think that this is an innovative city and that we can make it an even better city than it already is. And there have been growth pains. And I've been in the middle of that trying to, like, for instance, change some of the zoning laws to be more consistent with what the people here want. So I listen to people. I try to answer my emails. And I hope that I can get reelected.
20 seconds.
And help the city go forward for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate that. Okay.
Any questions or?
I'm not seeing any here. You must have answered what everybody was curious about, I suppose, for you there, Jim.
Okay, I hope so.
Thank you very much. Absolutely. We're going to move on to Mr. Eric Nolan. If you are ready, sir, please go ahead and unmute yourself, and we'll begin with questions soon after you give us your introduction to who you are and why you're running.
Thank you very much. So my name is Eric Nolan. I am running for City Council because I really have a passion for putting Flagstaff in a good direction. My background is in education and sustainability, and that is what I'm bringing to the table as far as how are we going to be able to get our mode of operations, our economy, more in line with sustainable models. Right now, we are not on that track, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. I am currently on our Planning and Zoning Commission as a commissioner. I'm also a liaison for our Open Spaces Commission. I am a Friends of Flagstaff's Future board member. I'm part of the revitalization team to help get that organization back up and running. I'm a PhD candidate at NAU in the College of Education. And I've been a member of the Flagstaff community for 10 years when I moved here in 2010. I'm stepping up to provide leadership and helping us move through one of the most challenging times in Flagstaff's history. I don't think any of us are in disagreement on that. And I will make it a priority to always listen to the concerns of our community on any issue that we have and work to integrate diverse perspectives into better planning for a more sustainable future. Issues that I'm very passionate about are growth, sustainability, economic recovery, affordable housing, community building, communication with transparency, climate change action, education, and responsible politics. And I'm here to work for the people of Flagstaff and for the greater community.
Thank you, Eric. You almost finished up with my first question I have ready for you today. Of all those things that you listed, what do you see are the 5 most important issues you want to address during your 4-year term in office?
So the first one is definitely growth. I would say about 4 years ago, I started to get involved with a lot of the student housing projects that were going up in neighborhoods, and the community was not happy about that. I spoke out against a few of them at council meetings, and I started to get more involved with a group called Relieving Growing Pains, which had NAU staff, city staff, county staff, and representatives from different community groups coming together to look at growth. And at the time, everybody seemed to be pointing their finger at NAU. However, once I started to get more involved, I pretty quickly realized that there are a lot of other factors that are contributing to growth in Flagstaff. So that's one of the major ones. Climate change action and sustainability to me are one and the same, especially when it comes to waste, water, and energy. I don't think we're going in the right direction when it comes to our waste. We're only recycling about 7% of all of our waste. The other 93% is going to a landfill. With water, I think we can do even better. We're not bad with our water conservation, but I think there are improvements that can be done there. And as far as energy goes, we're relying too heavily on still fossil fuels. We have APS that's been able to reduce coal production for electricity, but now we're relying more on natural gas. So as far as climate change also having an effect with climate migration, I think that plays a role in an issue that we're dealing with. And definitely affordable housing. The more involved that I've been with what is happening in our housing market, I am very concerned with the direction we're going, and especially when we're looking more and more like a Vail or Aspen, Colorado, where we're going to have a large portion of our workforce who can't even afford to live here. They'll have to live in Williams or outside other areas. I also think economic recovery has to be at the top of that list. COVID obviously has had a huge impact in our tax revenue. Council gave an update last night, and it's not as bad as it could have been, but we're still seeing that we're in the red, and it's going to be a while before we see the full impact of this. And then also community building. I think we're living in a time now where I have not seen more disparity within our differences, and I think now more than ever, we really need to work on uniting people of all perspectives to really focus on some sort of a common goal. And I think that's focusing on a greater Flagstaff community.
Thank you. Okay. Second question, how will you address continuing growth pressures, such as all the people that are moving here from everywhere else, in the future growth of NAU?
So I think we need to be realistic looking forward. So my whole campaign, I'm looking through the lens of sustainability and climate change because that ties into everything. We are not optimally functioning right now. I mentioned we're only recycling 7% of our waste, but we're also using 82% of our groundwater capacity within our 100-year plan. And what that means is this plan was developed for future generations. And if we start to exceed the capacity that we have for that plan, now we're starting to gamble with our water resources, with our kids and our grandkids moving forward. And I think we need to be very mindful of where we're at with that. And then, as I had mentioned, we're relying too heavily on natural gas for electricity production. So what I would like to see is more implementation of our regional plan and our climate action and adaptation plan goals into our city code that can be done with council direction. And I believe Mr. Deasy was speaking earlier to that we have an incentive right now for affordable housing within a density bonus, but we also have that within sustainability. And there's a metric in there that I would like to see raised for energy efficiency. I think we can improve that there and work with developers to look at how we can make that happen. Inflation in Flagstaff is caused by demand side factors, meaning that so many people want to come here and want to move here. They're willing to pay above the market price for that. And I'm sure you folks are more familiar with that than I am. But with the economists that I've talked to, this means that people are willing to pay more to live here, and we should be ready to appropriately ask for those who can afford it, how that's going to play into our growth factors, because the demands are going to increase as our population continues to increase.
Okay, thank you. Third question, we have by most accounts a very safe city to live, work, and visit. Since this is critically important to all of us here, small business and residents, owners and visitors, how do you plan to ensure that it stays that way?
This is a really great question because, you know, one thing that I've loved ever since I moved here is just to see how this community pulls together in times of crisis. The museum fire was a great example of that. Everybody was all over social media, sharing information, coordinating. So that way, not only were people protected when the fire was up and going, but then also looking when the monsoon started to come in and the floodplains were created. So how people were volunteering to build sandbags. So I can see that the community pulls together when it really matters. And I would like to see us strengthen that by having social services and continuing social services like suicide and addiction prevention, I would also like to see early childhood development opportunities like Launch Flagstaff also have support. And I would also like to provide more accessible recreational opportunities where appropriate, as well as promoting our Flagstaff Police Department Citizen Liaison Committee to better integrate with the community. So it's not really looked at as certain groups within our community feel that they're being targeted, but that it's really building an understanding and communication within our greater community within keeping everybody safe. And that includes those who protect us. And just more general advocacy for community building. A lot of times I see misinformation, unfortunately, is just a part of how people perceive our world. It's how we act with one another. But I think getting back to civility and making sure that we're having responsible conversations. And I think as a council, it's our duty to be at the forefront of those conversations. So recently, one of our issues
10 seconds.
was looking at police reform. And I think with the conversations that I've been a part of in that, we're already seeing that we're making progress in those areas. And I would like to continue those efforts.
Thank you. Fourth question, COVID-19 has obviously created some significant issues with small businesses. How do you plan to assist these locally owned small businesses and help them keep their doors open?
So I would love to see our Flagstaff Business Retention and Expansion Incentive Program continue annually, especially while we stabilize from COVID. This is a great program. Once I looked into this, firms that have 1 to 150 employees can apply for grants between $5,000 to $30,000. And I would like to see us move forward because to me, I think small businesses are the heart and soul of the community. One of my biggest concerns, especially once COVID hit, is if we start to see those businesses go out, we're just going to see large corporate chains come in to fill that market share. And I don't want to see that. I would like to see that character be retained. So that way we don't just become another strip mall like every other city that I've been to. And we can really maintain an essence of Flagstaff that is very unique to this particular place. I would also like to continue healthy relationships with Coconino County Economic Development and Coconino County Small Business Development Center to ensure that small businesses understand the resources that are available to them. So that way they have an understanding of that. And one of our other candidates, Miranda Sweet, I think can speak to that more than I can, but I would like to ensure businesses like hers can maintain and sustain in Flagstaff. And I would also like to see what more is needed with regard to the CARES Act. We did have some COVID funding come through with council being able to direct that in different areas. And I would like to see what more we can do in that area too.
Thank you. Last question for you here is that regarding short-term rentals, what do you think about them and what would you like to see done regarding them?
That's a difficult one because in general, the free market works to a degree, but when it comes to housing, that's where we have seen our hotel industry move into neighborhoods. That disrupts all kinds of characteristics that are attributed to family values when you're trying to build community in the streets that you live in. And if it's just turning into an unbelievably transient population coming through there, I think it disrupts our greater community. I was rather pleased to see that there was an HOA in the east side that wanted to push back on that and say, you know, we don't want short-term rentals in our neighborhoods. We want to be able to see that families are going to move in and people who are going to be living here can make use of these housing areas. So I don't know what the responsible path forward is because we're very limited by a lot of state preemptions on this. So we don't have too much local control that we have, but I definitely want to explore ideas on how we can better balance maintaining the characteristics of neighborhoods as opposed to just turning them into profit centers.
Thank you. And that concludes your 5 questions, Eric. We've got to open up now for questions from our members, if there are any, which I'm not seeing any here. And if we need a few more seconds to generate some questions, let's go ahead then, Eric, with your closing statement, please.
Okay, yeah, I'm running for city council because I think I have a skill set and experience, not only in leadership, but also just in bringing people to the table. Let's look at all the issues that we have, get all the facts out there, make sure that people are informed, and let's move forward from there. So I would like to be a part of the new council to see that sustainability, climate change action, and affordable housing are at the top of our priority list. I do think economic recovery is going to be a part of that, and I just want to help us get to a better place, especially in light of COVID.
Thank you, Mr. Nolan. Okay, and I still don't see any questions there, so y'all must be doing a wonderful job. Oh, one has popped up as far as addressing some of the concerns that we have. And again, thank you. We have one from Tad Moore. Employers have difficulty recruiting because of housing costs. How can you help develop partnerships between employers and developers to create more workforce housing?
So I've talked to actually a few developers on this, and I think part of it is looking at our incentive program. But state law, basically, the only option that we have to work with developer is through incentives. So I would like to look a little bit more into our city codes to see what sort of tweaks can we make in those areas, so that way developers feel that they can produce a product that can house more affordable units, especially considering our teachers, fire force, and police force are really struggling just to get basic housing established in those areas. So I would like to see us continue those conversations, and especially as we look forward with the growth that's going to be happening, say on J.W. Powell, that we can ensure we have units that are for the people who live and stay in Flagstaff.
Thank you. Okay, I believe that's going to be it for you, Mr. Eric. Again, thank you. We're going to move on to our second Eric that is joining us today. Thank you. Eric Senseman, if you are with us, please go ahead and unmute yourself. Give us your 90-minute introduction of who you are and why you are running, and then we'll proceed with the 5 questions.
Yeah, thanks so much, Melinda, and thanks to the Northern Arizona Association of Realtors. I appreciate the opportunity. I will keep it to 90 seconds. You said 90 minutes, but I'll do my best here. No problem at all. Yeah, so my name's Eric Senseman. I grew up coming out to Flagstaff. My grandparents moved here in the 80s, my aunt and uncle and cousins in the 90s. So got to know the place and wanted to make my way back, and was able to do that about 3 years ago. My history in, I suppose, life was first in academics. Received my philosophy degree from Texas Christian University, and then my master's at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Largely became well-versed in critical thinking, public speaking, and then used those skills largely working for small businesses since then. I helped with a solar startup company in Florida. I spent some time as a freelance journalist. Since moving to Flagstaff, I work for two local companies. One is a running coaching company, and the other is called Squirrel's Nut Butter. We make it's manufacturing, and I work as a strategist. So I've been able to use the critical thinking skills that I obtained in school to help out these various businesses. And what I'd like to do on City Council is the same thing, and bring an evidence-based approach to the council in order to find solutions to the issues we face.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for the correction.
Yeah, no problem.
Digging in there. All right, and your first question, Mr. Senseman. This current city council has raised property taxes 3 times, 3 years, 16% without a vote of the people. Since property taxes are naturally going up, could increase property values. Where do you stand on raising property taxes?
Yeah, thanks for this question. Number of candidates have touched on this already, but the things I would like to know. Yeah, first and foremost, I would not be looking to raise that tax on council if elected. I think a couple key things here. First of all, the median value of a home in Coconino County is higher than most everywhere else in Arizona. So the actual payments tend to be a bit higher for the state, but the effective tax rate is actually quite low in Arizona compared to the national average. And again, as was mentioned, what the city council did was they made increases that were not made in the past. So, you know, that's money that's going to fund essential services, and I believe that's important. But going forward, I would not be looking immediately to raise any taxes, property taxes on homes.
Thank you. Second question, soon after your election, city is going to begin doing the 2021 fiscal budget. What will your priorities be for the 2021 budget?
Yeah. So again, I think in light of, as a number of people have mentioned, in light of the pandemic, the revenue for the city is down a bit, probably not down as much as you might have expected, which is great. But nevertheless, I think the number one priority for the 2021 fiscal budget is to ensure that essential city operations continue to operate smoothly and that those are fully funded. So we're talking about police, fire, water, trash, et cetera. And then anything beyond that, I think may need to go on the back burner and may need to not be an immediate priority, even if it had planned to be prior to the pandemic. So I think the council will need to look really closely at any additional projects and spending to ensure that we're not going into a deficit if our revenue's down.
Thank you. Third question, our housing prices are at an all-time high and our rents have been described as the 5th worst in the nation. How do you plan to address those issues?
Yeah, so the housing costs in Flagstaff are roughly 40% higher than the national average. That has fluctuated, and that's largely due to supply and demand. And as has been mentioned already, an Acona study determined that we're 6,000 units short in meeting our demand. So as long as that's happening, we're gonna have higher prices with our housing. So I think the city needs to set a goal. I think you can base it on the percentage that we are higher than the national average and say, hey, over the next 4 years, let's try to reduce this from 40 to 30 and then develop a comprehensive and strategic plan to do that. But the key is we need to build more housing and we need to build more housing for Flagstaff's workforce.
Thank you. Fourth question, how will you address the continuing growth pressures, such as all the people that are moving here from out of state and the future growth at NAU?
Well, like Eric Nolan said, I think you have to be realistic here, which is to say, you know, you can't stop people from moving here, but what you can do as a city is prepare for that growth. And by preparing for it, you allow for growth to be sustainable. While the most recent city council, the current city council, I think has done a better job of trying to get housing built for Flagstaffians, I think over the last couple decades, previous councils have not. And that's led us to where we are, which is, again, we're 6,000 units short. So I think that the city council going forward needs to continue to focus on getting housing built so that the prices start to come down. And again, people who are making you know, minimum wage or above minimum wage, but certainly not a huge paycheck, can afford to live here. And I think one way to do that is building a little bit more denser and building units that are smaller, studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, because those are meant to be affordable. And those are what a lot of people in Flagstaff need.
Okay. And Mr. Simpson, your last question, how do you plan to work with the incumbent council members to address the many issues facing our community?
Yeah, so open communication and transparency are extremely important, I think, in life, in any sector, but especially in government. And I would try, I've tried to be very, well, to develop my communication skills first so that I can be clear with people, and then to develop relationships. And so I've met with several current and former city council members during my campaign. It's been extremely helpful to learn from their experiences. It's allowed me to better understand the issues that the city faces. And if elected to city council, I would like to continue that by developing relationships with all council members so that we can work together closely, we can understand each other, and we can work together to come up with solutions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Concludes our 5 questions. As we're tooling through trying to see if we can get any questions from our members here, we'll go ahead and proceed with your closing statement, Eric.
Yeah, well, again, thanks for this opportunity to speak with everyone. I think, again, for me, I'd like to use the skill sets I've developed outside of government and apply them in local government. And I think those skill sets are well suited for the problems that we face in terms of looking at an issue, obtaining evidence, obtaining data, and trying to determine maybe new, maybe creative, but maybe old ways of doing things, but being open to a variety of different solutions and being open to coming up with new ones that are based on evidence and based on data. So that's really what I'd like to bring to City Council to ensure that we can maintain the intrinsic characteristics that make this place great while we grow, because unfortunately, well, for better or for worse, we can't stop from growing. So yeah, and again, thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, and thank you. Thank you for your closing statement. We do have a question here again from Mr. Tad Moore, who seems very concerned with the development of Schultz Pass for affordable housing. He'd like to know where you stand on that.
Sure. I mean, I think the short story is when you're 6,000 units short of where you should be, you need a lot of housing. A 3-acre parcel isn't especially big, although because it's city owned, it would allow for affordable housing units because that's city property. But as Mr. DC said earlier, I am in favor of allowing the voters to voice their opinion on this, and based on the opinion of the community, the city should proceed accordingly by either designating the space as open space, or if it's not voted in favor of, building affordable housing.
Thank you. I do not see any other questions here, so we will go ahead and proceed. Again, thank you, Eric, for joining us today. We greatly appreciate it. We will go ahead and move forward with our last City Council official candidate here, Ms. Miranda Sweeney. If you are with us, please go ahead, and I see that you are. Go ahead and mute yourself, please, and give us your 90 seconds, 90 minutes if we had more, but 90 seconds.
Yeah. Well, I do want to thank you for having me and the other candidates today. My last name, it's a blessing and a curse. I always have to go last. So everyone did a great job. I'll probably be repeating a lot of it. I moved here 27 years ago by mistake, and I have been entrenched in our community ever since. I got my degree from NAU in elementary education. I was a teacher for a while, and 20 years ago, I decided to follow my dream, and I opened up a small business downtown. I've been in the same spot. It's Rainbow's End, and I've been working at it and cultivating relationships in our downtown and throughout the city for the 27 years. I'm a mom. I have 2 boys that are in the FUSD school district. It's been a challenge. COVID has definitely challenged me in ways I never expected. But in the end, I do believe I'm a better candidate. I'm a better mom. I'm a better business owner. And I just really am excited to get on council, help form some future policies and ideas, and keep doing what I do best. And that is listening to our community and trying to foster the voice. That's what I'm good at. So thank you again for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us. We greatly appreciate it. Your first question, Miranda, is regarding our housing prices being at an all-time high and the rents being the 5th worst in the nation. How do you plan to address those issues?
So I think the first thing, and I know we've heard this time and time again, is that we do need to add inventory. My concern is that we're not adding the right inventory. I don't know if a house being available at $350,000 is really what our workforce needs. I have an employee right now that I just offered a management position, and she had to turn me down. She wants to buy a house, raise a family, and she looked into all sorts of different options here in Flagstaff, and she can't make it work. So I am losing her. She's moving to Phoenix. And that has been happening with my friends, my colleagues, my employees for years. So I think adding inventory for our workforce is a big deal for me. Adding in different incentives. I feel like we haven't really dove in as deep as we can on getting those incentives right. You know, it costs a lot to build a home here in Flagstaff. So how do we bring that cost down so that the builders can do what they need to do, which in the end is make money?
20 seconds.
I'm done. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Second question, where do you feel the 5 most important issues you want to address with your term in the office?
So being a small business owner and knowing what a budget entails, that is my #1 thing. And my guess is getting onto council. That will be my main focus for a while. Now, how long that is, I'm not sure, but making sure that we have our initial costs covered. I'm fiscally conservative, I guess, more than I thought. So making sure that we remain with money in the coffers for an event of an emergency, which we're in right now. Looking at our health and safety, definitely our housing, again, workforce housing. I'm excited about our Southside community plan, and I'm working on part of the downtown vision that can also incorporate housing. So looking at that, I'm excited about our CAP. I think it's a great tool that we can use in all facets of our decision making. And I have been studying that thing to no end. So that will include our water, our fire, transportation, open space. And I would like to address the concerns of our police, first responders, and really open up communication with our community. I think we
20 seconds.
heard loud and clear that our community would like that discussion, and I'm here to listen and make sure that we have all voices heard.
Thank you. The next question regarding short-term rentals. How do you feel about that? And what is your position on that? What would you like to see done?
So I just had a friend literally last night call me asking, what can we do about short-term rentals? She lives in a neighborhood that has the hotels that we're talking about. And my response honestly is, as a city, we're doing what we can. So monitoring the rentals, trying to make them community wise, you know, monitoring the trash, the noise, the disruption. Also, you know, the legislature has directly tied our hands. So what can we do? We can monitor TPT taxes. We can ensure that short-term rentals obtain a business license, and keep knocking on the doors of our Arizona legislature that we want our local control. And I'm not saying all short-term rentals are bad. I have friends that have one to help supplement their income because it is so expensive to live here. But I do believe that the hotels moving into our neighborhoods, it's just unraveling the fabric of Flagstaff in the neighborhood sense.
Thank you. Fourth question for you, Miranda, in regards to the raising of the property taxes. Where do you stand
20
on raising
seconds.
property taxes? We're on the next question. Sorry, sweetie.
Oh, sorry.
She's moving right along. Regarding the property tax increase, where do you stand on property taxes?
So I understand the frustration we have, and I like what Jim McCarthy explained in kind of the forming of the question is a little misread, but I will say that it feels like it either is property taxes or our sales tax. And I would like to figure out ways to balance our budget where we don't have to rely on those two taxes. So I would like to redirect maybe some conversation. I think that especially after COVID, I can see it as a business owner and a homeowner. I don't know what the next couple of years will be like. And from someone who lives in our community, I see that money is going to be a subject. So I'm not interested in raising taxes for the next couple of years until we get our feet back on the ground. I don't think this recovery process is going to be as quick as we're hoping. So, but we do need to look at it, and we went a lot of years without having it increased, and I'm not ready to increase it anytime soon, but as it comes, I think it will have to be something we put out to the community, ask what they want, and make those decisions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, and your last question for us, Ms. Miranda, regarding the continuing growth that we have from people moving here out of state as second home buyers and the future growth of NAU. How do you plan to address those pressures and issues?
So I'm going to focus on NAU for a second because I don't think I heard other candidates answer that portion of the question. I, as someone who has a business, has a family, I went to NAU, I am in the core of our community every single day. I don't hear a lot of communication between NAU and the rest of Flagstaff. So what I would love to see, and I was actually on a committee that started fostering this, unfortunately COVID hit and we have not come back together, but I would like to see better communication between NAU and Flagstaff. What are their projections? What are they wanting to do? How are they wanting to grow? Then we can make a plan, right now I don't have that information and I don't hear that information. So I think on council, I would like to have some direct communication so that I feel like I can move forward with a plan regarding NAU. It's kind of a mystery to me. I mean, their enrollment is down, but we keep building. So I would like to know, what are their projections for the next 5-10 years, and what are they wanting to see for our community? Because maybe we can agree on more things than what we're thinking. I'm not seeing it right at the moment.
Thank you. And that concludes all of your 5 questions. And thank you for patiently waiting at the end. It was in alphabetical order. I can sympathize with that one.
I'm used
And
to it by now.
that's good. We do have a familiar question for you, though, and it is in regards to the Schultz Pass. So if you could please discuss that.
Absolutely. So I did answer this in the Daily Sun. It is the one time that I have actually kind of changed my mind. I would like to see it put to the voters. However, I did specifically respond to the Save Schultz Meadow, and I asked them, can we form, or can you form a trust where we somehow buy that land from the city and use those monies to invest in other properties for affordable housing? That was a big question for me. I would like to see, and I would expect to see, the city get that money back. And I was told that that is not in the Citizens Initiative, and that affordable housing is not part of that initiative. But affordable housing is certainly important to me. I do feel that this topic has been a long time. I've heard all sides of it. And I do see the value in bringing it to the Flagstaff citizens. But I've tried every angle on figuring out ways to get Flagstaff their money that we have spent.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm not seeing other questions. If there are further questions, please go ahead and diligently share those with us so that we can address any concerns that you have. And thank you all again for being here with us and joining us today. We have long wanted to create a good bridge between the gap of what's going on within our community, how we see it from a realtor's perspective, as well as the decisions that are being made in the city council. And we've had city council members come and join us at some of our events, but there still hasn't really been a good cohesiveness between us to be able to communicate and share. We both have the same goal, right? It's for Flagstaff, it's for the community. So I really am excited and feel like this is a great introduction, and hopefully we can continue with that momentum that we created here today. I find it extremely valuable to hopefully y'all, but to us and to our members as well, that we can take back. We can go ahead and educate ourselves so that we can vote. So I'll go ahead and put that plug in. Don't forget to vote. Mail-in ballots Tuesday, November 3rd, so be ready. And this gives us an opportunity so that we can do that and help us make the best decisions to get out and inform people, to take action for Flagstaff and furthermore for the rest of the country, hopefully, right? So thank you again. This has made a difference to our members and hopefully for y'all as well as we continue with this. And I wish you all the best of luck. As you go forward your journey. I know that this is often a thankless job with what you have to do. You don't really do it for the money, you do it because you care, and we realize that as well. So we do have, looks like maybe we just have some thank yous here from everybody. So we do appreciate it. Feel free, and I'd also again like to give some great praise to Rick Lopez, who's been passionate about the city council and the decisions that have been made for Flagstaff and Coconino County for 20 plus years. He's really been our motivator and our leader in taking this initiative. So I can't do this without him, and a big thanks to him for doing that as well. So thank you all for your time, and I don't see any other questions here for you guys. Is there anything else that needs to be said before we let you guys get back onto your day?
No questions. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thank you very much. Best wishes to you all. And again, don't forget to vote November 3rd. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.